Now, before Orville and Wilbur Wright succeeded in developing this airplane, they failed many times, but they went on their own personal initiative. And Thomas A. Edison in the development of the incandescent electric lamp. Imagine a man, for instance, standing by through 10,000 different failures, as Mr. Edison did, before giving up. His personal initiative was so definite that he told me that if he hadn't found the secret of the incandescent electric lamp, that at that very moment he would be in the laboratory working on it instead of being out there wasting his time talking with me. And then in a more serious note, Mr. Edison said, you know, I had to succeed because I finally ran out of things that wouldn't work. And I've thought of that so many times, wondering why more people don't keep on keeping on until they run out of things that won't work, for then they're bound to find the thing that will work. And take myself, for example, in devoting more than 20 years to research for the missing link of this philosophy, now known as the law of cosmic habit force. My persistent personal initiative finally yielded a full and workable description of this great law of nature, into which all the other 16 principles of this philosophy blend, and on which they must depend for automatic application. And last but not least, the most important of all, the habit of personal initiative must begin by its application in the small, unimportant circumstances of one's daily life. It is the antidote for procrastination. It is the beginning of all great achievement.
Dr. Hill, I remember you saying that there's no single requirement for individual success that's as important as self-discipline, taking control of our thoughts and our emotions. And this is a major emphasis in my work with people. I know you stress the importance of taking complete possession of our own minds, as you like to express it. Would you talk a little bit about what this means to you?
Yes, the power of thought is the only thing over which you have complete, unchallenged, and unchallengeable control. Controlled by power of will. In giving human beings control over but one thing, the Creator must have chosen the most important of all things. This is a stupendous fact that merits your most profound consideration. If you give it this sort of consideration, you will discover for yourself the rich promises available to those who become masters of their own mind power through self-discipline. Self-discipline leads to sound physical health, and it leads to peace of mind, development of harmony within one's own mind. It enables one to keep the mind fixed upon that which is wanted and off of that which is not wanted. The majority of people go all the way through life with most of their mind power fixed upon their fears and their discouragements and things they don't want. You will have acquired sufficient self-discipline to enable you to find health, wealth, and happiness when you can close the door of your mind to all the things you do not want. For then and then only will the door to all the things you do want open to you. The past is gone forever. Close the door of your mind against it, and lo, the door to a hopeful future will open in front of you. The failure, defeat, illness, disappointment, and fears of the past have no place of controlling factors in your life. Close the door against them all. Close it tight. Close it good and tight, and you will have gained a victory in self-discipline that may be priceless to you throughout life.
I understand that Mahatma Gandhi introduced your writings to India, and that he himself was deeply impressed by your teachings of self-discipline.
Yes, he was. Just think of that one man defeating the entire military forces of the British government, freeing his people, sending the British military forces home without the firing of a gun or without the killing of a soldier. That's a stupendous illustration of what the mind can accomplish. Incidentally, when Gandhi first read a copy of Think and Grow Rich, he made up his mind that he wanted to have it widely distributed throughout India. And he sent an emissary over here to the United States to look me over to find out if I was just a ghostwriter or a fake or the real McCoy. They put me under 24-hour-day surveillance through a detective agency. And when the report went back to Gandhi, he ordered the book published and widely distributed in India, and it has become a bestseller. It did become a bestseller in that country at that time and has been since. And today, I think I could say that Gandhi has been responsible for the sale of more of those books than has any other cause.
Dr. Hill, I'd like to move to the principle you call controlled attention. Our listeners will be familiar with the basics of it from hearing me talk about controlling your focus. So I think they'd appreciate hearing your viewpoint on why it's so important to concentrate our attention on our major purpose.
Well, the main reason for concentrating upon a major purpose is that if you don't do that, you dissipate your mind power by allowing it to dwell on relatively unimportant things. The men of great achievement have all learned the art of concentrating upon one definite major purpose in life. Of course, they have other minor purposes, but I'm talking now about a major overall purpose. Let us take a look at some of them, for instance. Henry Ford's major purpose, for instance, was his desire to build a low-priced automobile, and while he was chided by his relatives and by the public at large for wasting his time on that contraption, as they called it, Ford was the first man to build automobiles successfully in the entire world. He concentrated his mind on that and didn't allow it to be diverted to anything else. Thomas A. Edison's controlled attention was directed toward invention, and he became the most outstanding inventor of all times, as you of course know. Mine, for instance, is concentration upon the philosophy of personal achievement, and I have devoted now 55 years to doing just that, with the result that I have reached the minds of millions of people in practically all of the free countries of the world. And before I pass on, I hope to see the philosophy introduced to all of the nations of the world, including China and Russia, if you please. Rockefeller's, John D. Rockefeller's, his idea was to concentrate upon the producing and the refining and the marketing of oil, and he made a stupendous fortune out of it. Ralph Waldo Emerson's act of concentration was probing the depths of men's thoughts and thinking processes.
I believe it was Emerson who said, "Every great and commanding moment in the annals of the world is a triumph of some enthusiasm." And I know in your long life you've had a chance to see this demonstrated again and again.
I not only have seen it demonstrated, but I have demonstrated it myself. For instance, back in the early days when I wanted to get a job from a certain firm while I was going to high school, here's the way I went about it. I wrote an application stating my qualifications and my desire for the job. The answer came back, no, too sorry, no position open. Next, I sent a telegram. Answer was still no. And next, I sent a special delivery letter every day for a week. Answer was still no. Next, I sent a special delivery every hour for 2 days. And the firm telegraphed me to come and go to work. Then there was Clarence Saunders, one of my outstanding students of Memphis, Tennessee. Clarence worked in a grocery store, delivering groceries, more or less. And he had a great amount of enthusiasm and also a keen imagination. He was constantly trying to interest his employer in new and improved methods of merchandising. And finally, the employer became so peeved at Clarence for wasting his time with what he called foolish suggestions that he told him that if he came in with another one, he was going to fire him. Shortly thereafter, a cafeteria was opened in Memphis, Tennessee, the first cafeteria that came there. And when Clarence went out to his lunch that day, he saw a great line of people extending out onto the sidewalk, waiting to be served in the cafeteria. Out of curiosity, he got on the end of the line, and when he picked up his tray and filled it up, by the time he got down to the cashier or the checker, his imagination began to turn. And he said, what a wonderful thing this would be in our grocery business, to have a self-help grocery store so women could come in with a basket on their arm, pick up what they wanted, and pay for it at one place as they went out. It would save a lot of time, and it would save a lot of embarrassment. Well, Clarence could hardly wait until he got back to the store, and he rushed in and he said, well, boss, I have a multi-million-dollar idea, and the boss said, now, Clarence, you're fired. Clarence said, oh, no, I'm not. I resigned before I started to talk. Later on, I talked to the man who was Clarence's boss, and he said as near as he could figure, every word that he used in trying to fire Clarence had cost him $1 million. Because Clarence took his idea of self-help grocery stores to a firm who financed it under the name of Piggly Wiggly Stores, and he made $4 million during the first 4 years. An astounding illustration of what a man can do with an idea backed by the proper amount of enthusiasm.
Dr. Hill, you've written quite a lot about learning from adversity, which I personally had lots of opportunities to do in my life, and I'm sure many of our listeners have as well. So I think it'd be useful to get into this, especially your statement that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Would you explain just what do you mean by this?
It's true that failure, fear, physical pain, and all other forms of adversity carry with them the seed of an equivalent or a greater benefit. Physical pain is the common language of nature in which she speaks to all living creatures and teaches them many things they would not learn in any other way. Failure and defeat have been known to turn people back from chosen purposes which, had they been attained, would have led to destruction. Remember the next time you meet with any sort of adversity that it contains the seed of an equivalent or a greater benefit. But you must find that seed and germinate it into growth in your behalf through constructive thinking and positive action. Every circumstance affecting your life can be turned to a benefit by your mental attitude toward it. Now let me give you some illustrations, for instance. Take the case of the defeat of Lord Cornwallis by the armies of George Washington in 1778. Probably it was considered by the British to have been an irreparable loss from which no benefits would ever come. But the defeat turned out to have been a blessing in disguise, because the United States of America, born of that defeat, saved the British Empire from possible total destruction in both World Wars I and II, not to mention having also helped to feed the British people when they were hungry and sorely in need of the aid which they so recently received in overabundance. Take the case of Abraham Lincoln, for example. In his early life, Lincoln fell in love with Anne Rutledge, probably the only woman that he ever loved. And when Anne Rutledge died, Lincoln's sorrow became so great that his friends thought he would lose his mind. He was missing for a couple of days, and he was finally located, spread out across the grave of Anne Rutledge, weeping. One of the facts overlooked in those who wrote about Lincoln's life is this. Had it not been for the sorrow which Lincoln felt over the death of his sweetheart, he would not have become the great man that he was, because that sorrow reached deeply into the depths of his soul and revealed a man who later became one of the greatest presidents of the United States. And take Charles Dickens, for instance. His sorrow over the loss of his first sweetheart led him to transmuting this sorrow into writing. And his first book, David Copperfield, and many other books became classics for all time to come. And take O. Henry. His real name was Charles Porter. Found himself in prison in Columbus, Ohio. And as a result of that adversity, he turned his attention to writing, and he turned out books which immortalized him. Adversity. I think I can tell you, had it not been for the many adversities which I experienced in the early part of my work with Andrew Carnegie, I never would have completed the science of personal achievement. I had adversity after adversity, but I learned to transmute those adversities into something constructive and to come up with something that would take the place of an adversity. Every time I failed, I said, well, this is just another opportunity that I have to prove that my philosophy can take care of the situation of failure. I learned to transmute all failures into successes. I also learned the difference between temporary defeat and failure. Most people accept defeat as permanent failure. Defeat is never failure. No circumstance is ever failure until it is accepted by the individual as such. And that's one of the greatest things that I learned about this principle of profiting by adversity.
Dr. Hill, you have a fascinating metaphor about two sealed envelopes. Would you share that story with us, and what does it really mean?
Well, at birth, we come over with the equivalent of two sealed envelopes. In one of these envelopes is a long list of the benefits and riches that one may receive by the positive use of his mind. And in the other envelope, an equally long list of the penalties he must pay if he neglects to use his mind constructively. Nature abhors idleness and vacuums. Nature sees to it that strength grows out of struggle, out of effort, and she wants man to use his mind and to use it constructively. Nothing constructive and worthy of man's efforts ever has been or ever will be achieved except through that which comes from a positive mental attitude based upon a definite purpose and activated by a burning desire and intensified until the burning desire is elevated to the plane of applied faith. Wishes, well, everyone has a flock of them. Idle curiosity, everyone has a stock of it. Hopes, perhaps half of the people have hopes for as yet unattained things or circumstances. A burning desire, only that small percentage of people who can be called successful ever feel the urge of this. Applied faith, only the leaders attain this degree of mind control, which can exist only in a positive mental attitude. Prayer brings positive results only when it is expressed in a positive mental attitude. The most effective prayer is that which is expressed by individuals who have conditioned their minds to habitually think in terms of a positive mental attitude. The vibrations of thought sent out from an individual's mind carry with them to other minds the precise state of mind in which they are released, a fact well known to all master salesmen who have learned how to condition their minds and the minds of their prospect buyers even before seeing them. No lawyer can convince a jury, no clergyman can inspire his parishioners, no speaker can hold and influence his audience without the aid of a positive mental attitude. And it has been said that the most successful doctors in all branches of therapy are those who treat their patients with a positive mental attitude. The subconscious mind of an individual can be educated to produce constructive results only when it is given instructions in a positive mental attitude. Everyone desires to be rich, but not everyone knows what constitutes enduring riches, and most people believe riches to consist only in material things that money can buy. Now here is a list of the 12 things which constitute real riches. Number 1, a positive mental attitude. Observe that it heads the list. And second, sound physical health. And third, harmony in human relations. And fourth, freedom from fear. And fifth, the hope of future achievement. And sixth, the capacity for applied faith. And 7, willingness to share one's blessings with others. 8, to be engaged in the labor of love. 9, an open mind on all subjects toward all people. 10, complete self-discipline. 11, wisdom with which to understand people. And 12, financial security. Observe, if you will, with great benefit, the fact that money comes at the end of the list of the 12 things that make men rich.
Dr. Hill, you refer to the natural law that controls all human relationships as cosmic habit force, which even now in the 90s seems like a mysterious, far-off power. So I'd like you to demystify it for us. What's it really all about? What are you getting at here?
Well, this is the law by which the equilibrium of the whole universe is maintained and in an orderliness fashion through established habits. The law forces every living thing and every inanimate particle of matter to adhere to and to follow the vibrations of its environment, including, of course, the physical habits and the thinking habits of mankind. The science of personal achievement has been designed to enable one to establish habits that lead to financial security, to health and peace of mind necessary for happiness. With the application of the principles of this philosophy, one may set up the pattern of any desired habit, after which the habit is taken over by cosmic habit force and made to carry on automatically. Now, some of the habits fixed by cosmic habit force are these. For instance, the stars and the planets as they are established in their fixed course, and the seasons of the year as they come and go with precision, and in the reproduction and growth of everything that grows from the soil of the earth. Each seed reproducing precisely its own kind without variation, and the reproduction of every living thing from the smallest insect and the microscopic infusoria of the sea on up to man. The chemical actions of matter from the smallest particle of matter, that is, the electrons, protons, to the largest particle of matter as they exist in the stars. All actions and reactions of matter are based upon the fixed habits of cosmic habit force. The perpetuation of every living thing through the sex principle. Each seed reproduces its own kind, but each individual reproduction is modified by the vibrations, that is, the environmental influences of the environment in which it exists. The thought habits of individuals are automatically fixed and made permanent by cosmic habit force, no matter whether they are negative or positive. The individual creates the pattern of his own thoughts by a repetition of thoughts on a given subject, but the law of cosmic habit force takes over these patterns and makes them permanent unless they are broken up by the will of the individual. Man is the only living creature that is equipped with the power of choice by which he may establish his own thought patterns or break up and rearrange them at will. Therefore, now let us consider briefly the application one may make of this powerful benefit. Physical health, for instance. The individual may contribute to the healthful maintenance of his physical body by establishing habit patterns in connection with the following subjects. In his thinking, for example, a positive mind leads to the development of what is known as a health consciousness, and cosmic habit force carrying out that thought pattern to its logical conclusion. But it will just as readily carry out the picture of an ill health consciousness created by the thought habits of the hypochondriac, even to the extent of reproducing the physical and mental symptoms of any disease on which the individual may fix his thought habits through fear. And in eating, the mental attitude and the thought patterns established while one is eating, and during the following 2 or 3 hours while the food is being broken into a liquid form for introduction into the body through the blood, may determine whether the food enters the body in a suitable form for the maintenance of sound health. It is a well-established fact that the power of one's thoughts enters into and becomes a vital part of the energy that is carried into the body through the food. That worry, fear, and all negative thoughts poison the food. Therefore, controlled thought habits during mealtime is of the utmost importance in the maintenance of health. In work, here too, mental attitude becomes a vital ally of the silent repairment that is working on every cell of the body while one is engaged in physical action. Therefore, work should become a religious ceremony with which only positive thoughts are mixed. The famous Mayo brothers have discovered that 4 vitally important factors must be observed to maintain sound physical health. They are as follows: an equal balancing through thought habits of work and play, love and worship. Work must be well mixed with play, and worship must be mixed with love, or ill health will occur in some form. Observe that here enters a sound explanation of one of the major reasons for adopting and following the habit of going the extra mile. This habit not only benefits one economically, but it enables one to work with a mental attitude that leads to sound physical health. For comparison, consider the person who has the habit of griping and performs all sort of work grudgingly and in a negative frame of mind. It is a well-known fact that such individuals are seldom physically well, but they are constantly ailing, some of it real, some of it imaginary, but all of it destructive of sound health.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. I appreciate very much you taking the time to share with us your philosophy personally. I want people to realize that your philosophy is as real and usable today as it was when you first came up with these principles more than a half century ago. Once again, I thank you, the listener, for taking the time to study the principles of how to make your life better. And I look forward to visiting with you again next month. Till then, remember, live with passion.